Hey everybody, Music Man 82 here. If you spent any time in the Cody Powell area in northern Wyoming in the Bighorn Basin, you've seen Trout Peak. It's a beautiful mountain. Comes in at 12,244 feet and has almost 4,000 feet of prominence. It's the highest point in the northern Absaroka range. And there are no videos on YouTube up to this point about anyone climbing it or summiting it. So this will be a little bit longer video because I'm going to show you just all that it entails. The trip that I did actually ascended one route and descended the other, and we made a big traverse of the mountain. So you'll get to see both the standard approaches for it in this trip, or in this trip report. If you're interested in climbing it at some point, it's definitely an amazing summit. I grew up as a kid looking at Trout Peak out of my living room window, and it always caught my imagination, and I hoped I could make it up there someday. There's a group of guys from my church that did it in the mid-90s. I was too young to join. They reported seeing 6 grizzly bears, and it sounded like an epic adventure. So I made it a goal someday to get up there. Hopefully you enjoy this video, and cheers. I'm here at the Jenny Lake Ranger Station waiting to get backcountry permit for tonight. Watching the sunrise. Oh, you not so. This trip that I'm showing in this video was done with my friend Jan. He is the one you'll see in my Gannett Peak video that I've uploaded previously. And he and I were planning on climbing the Grand Teton. And the first day of this adventure, we were headed down to Jackson. He was coming from getting a new car somewhere west of Jackson, and we met up there and ended up, I got permits the morning of day 2 for our campsites, got the boot bags, but then the rangers at Jenny Lake told me that you had to probably have front point crampons to climb the route we wanted to. And so after a powwow at the bunnery where we had some breakfast, Jan and I decided to change our trip plans and head back up to the Cody area. And our plan as we made it was to leave his car at the Jim Creek Trailhead, which is near Wapiti, Wyoming, and then drive mine up to Spout Springs, which is near Pat O'Hara Mountain, up the Monument Hill Road. And this all went great. We left his car, we went to Cody, got some Subway for dinner, and then headed up there and then found a bunch of these signs at the top of the road. So as you can see, there are a lot of signs. The road going left is gated, and it goes along the top of Rattlesnake Mountain. If you go straight, it actually looks like you're not allowed to go on it, but it gets you very quickly to Forest Service land. So we weren't sure. We came back to Powell, decided to get up early the next morning after a phone call to a friend that works for the Forest Service, and they said, yeah, it's totally okay. You can drive straight and get to the Forest Service land. So we got up early that morning and we're on our way. So the plan for the trip was to climb 3 of the 12,000 foot peaks along this ridge. The first one that we reached is kind of the eastern summit of Trout Peak, and it's locally known as Robber's Roost, even though you won't find that on the maps. And then there is Trout Peak is next, and then the following morning I summited Crag benchmark, which is just over 12,000 feet, and then we dropped down into the Jim Creek Trailhead. So that was our plan, and it turned out to be a beautiful trip, as you'll see from the pictures. So we had a beautiful morning. That dawn of day 3, we got up to where we parked the car pretty early, and you'll be able to see the car in the very first picture here. And we kind of just set out off trail in the direction of the peak. We found some faint trails kind of leading over in that direction. There are some maps that show a Trout Peak trail, but it's very hard to find. We did find a Trout Peak trail sign that had been knocked over long ago, kind of just lying in the grass. And we know that the trail continues on to where the north spur of Trout Peak comes down and meets it. We left the trail early and headed towards the left to go up over the eastern summit. Once we reached the very top, it was a really cool spot. The views of Trout Peak over to the west were pretty awesome. And I had no idea if the route would connect through. I assumed it would, but that always that's not always the best plan in the mountains, but it worked for us in this one. The interesting thing is the summit register on this peak says on the very top, Trout Peak summit, and several people signed it, and then someone came in and wrote, "This is not Trout Peak. Trout Peak is, however far west of here," and it's pretty obvious if you look at a map that summit is not Trout Peak. So the summit register there is what first notified me that this peak was locally called Robber's Roost, and great little summit. We kind of headed down towards the west from there to connect the ridges between the two mountains. And then once we got to the peak, we had a choice whether to traverse to the right to get to the north part of the Trout Peak area, or to kind of go left. And I know people that I found someone that I talked to that had gone left and said it was no issue. We went right and it was really no issue. Definitely the ground was a little hard and you had a lot of the pebbly kind of rocks, so you had to be careful where you stepped, but other than that, was not bad at all. There's a fun little section going up to the summit of Trout Peak from the north that was kind of, I'd call class 2+. You could make it class 3 or 4 if you wanted to. It was just kind of fun little scrambling. The summit was amazing. There was a benchmark up there. Register was very interesting. Tom Sewell, I believe is from Whitefish, Montana, had left a Nepalese rupee up there. Some very interesting remarks in the summit register. Dealing with his political opinions. I've edited those out of the picture, but it was just an awesome feeling to be up on this summit because there aren't any peaks for a long ways that are as high as you are. After enjoying the summit, we got there late. It was probably 3:00, 3:30 in the afternoon. We headed a couple hundred feet down to the south and found a nice green camp spot kind of below a snowbank that we were able to dig a hole under and then filter water out of. I had Jan made some excellent macaroni and cheese that night, and this was my first real like backpacking trip where I was summiting peaks, and so this was kind of a new experience. I hadn't slept at altitude before. I think the highest I ever slept was well below 10,000 feet, and we were probably just below 12 here, and I remember it being a long night. I did not sleep well. Of course, I'd always grown up with the idea that there are bears everywhere out there, and I being in a tent in the middle of the night, knowing there are bears around, is a little bit intimidating the first time you do it. You get used to it after a while, but didn't see any bears, and it was just a beautiful camp spot, and we enjoyed that night a lot. So early the next morning, we headed down. There's a saddle between Trout Peak and Crag benchmark, and Crag. Jan didn't summit that one, but I went up to the top and found the benchmark up there. There were some interesting rock circles. It was a really cool summit looking over to the west. There's some really interesting pinnacles that are kind of along the backside of this valley down there. It's just amazing. And then we started to turn a little bit east and ridge walked all the way to where we dropped down into a valley and then traversed a little bit of the wonderful breccia scree stuff that you find in the Absaroka range to meet up over to Jim Mountain. If you've never been in the Absaroka range, they are made up mostly of what's called breccia, Breccia, and it's fondly referred to by hikers and climbers as kitty litter. It's essentially a dirt rock conglomerate that does not hold up to protection and is very dicey if you get into steep stuff, because you can be on a wall with all four of your limbs and suddenly this rock pulls out and your left foot pulls out, and it gets pretty scary. So that was luckily we didn't have to do much of that on this trip, but it's all over out there and you'll see the rotten kind of nature of a lot of the pinnacles. I had thought about summiting Jim Mountain on the way by, but after three summits, I was really kind of leg weary at that point. So we just continued down the Jim Creek Trail. There's some beautiful waterfalls, and got to the car not too long after lunch. Then we headed into Cody, had some Arby's, and then drove Jan's vehicle back up Monument Hill Road to go get my car. And I think we made it back to Powell around 6 o'clock that evening. It's a really fun trip. Definitely, if you go, I would recommend doing it with a group of people. The bears have gotten thicker in the last 10 years up there, so definitely a good idea to have more people in your party. And yeah, just an awesome place. So uh, I will be including links in the video description to a very detailed trip write-up that I did on summitpost.org, as well as the webpage on Trout Peak that I authored for summitpost.org. So there's all the information you'd need about planning a trip there, detailed mileages, elevation gain, roads to take, all of that stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. This is an amazing mountain, and truly lucky that I got to stand on top of it. So if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you around for more videos soon. Cheers.